Hello and good evening. Sorry, it was taking a while to go live. I'm just sitting here like this. But hello and good evening, everybody. I hope that you are all doing well. And I don't know if my computer's lagging a little bit or what, but hopefully everything is okay. I actually got a comment that I was reading through earlier. And so I wanted to come on here and kind of address it and point out the really, really important nature of sequential events, specifically in the book of Revelation. And as I was looking through this, I had a duh moment, an aha moment. And it's something that people have wondered about. And I'm like, oh, geez, that's what that means. So I'm going to go through this. And this is going to be just a real quick video. But I got a comment specifically about the order of the two witnesses and the beast in Revelation, and how the abomination of desolation occurs first and then the killing of the two witnesses. And this is very, very easy to refute because there is a sequential nature to specifically Revelation 13, which is where that order of events is presented, which also goes back to Revelation 11 in part. So I just want to take you guys through this real quick. And this is a very fundamental part of studying the Bible, specifically with the book of Revelation, is not taking things out of order. Now, the midpoint of the week is a little bit tricky because there are 5 different chapters that talk about 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 6 chapters, 10 through 15, that pertain to middle of the week events. And some are simultaneous and some are sequential, but they all happen at the midpoint. But it's like an order of operations type thing. And so it can be a little bit tricky to understand what is happening when, but they're all happening at the midpoint. More importantly, there's a reason that things must occur in the order that they must occur in, or that they will occur in the order that they will occur in. And specifically with regard to how the beast comes on the scene and what he does when he ascends, and there are reasons for this. Specifically with the abomination of desolation, that is a reactionary event. That isn't just, it's on this day, it's going to happen because he just willy-nilly decides to do it. It is a reactionary event. And so it's a reaction to what? Obviously, something precipitates it. It makes it to occur at a specific time. Otherwise, why couldn't it happen sooner? Why couldn't it happen later? Why does it happen when it happens? Well, because it's reactionary. There's something else that occurs to then make this happen. So there's a lot of understanding the why things fit together the way that they do in order to understand, in order to make sense of the how. But there's a lot of why. And one of the biggest disservices that a lot of people do in studying the book of Revelation is take it out of order, because then things don't make sense. You lose the why in trying to establish the what and the when. You have to take it all into context. And that's part of the reason I like studying the book, is because it's a challenge. It's very challenging. I like a good challenge. But I also like to understand the whys. Why does it have to work the way that it has to work? Why is it going to work the way that it's going to work? And once you understand the whys behind the action, then it becomes very difficult to unsee that. Like once you see it, you can't unsee it and go back to another thought process. Once it clicks, it's kind of like, oh, okay, then you accept it and move on. So that's kind of how I look at the study of the book of Revelation. And I'm constantly seeing new things, but they're in addition to the baseline. You have to have a good baseline first. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So one of the things that kind of came up in comments was that the abomination of desolation happens first. And then at the same time, the two witnesses are killed. And that is pretty easily disproven when you take Revelation 11 and 13 and take them side by side. Because again, Revelation 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 all have mid-trib events in them. Some are from a heavenly view, some are from an earthly view, some pertain to the two witnesses, some pertain to the 144,000, some pertain to the war in heaven, some pertain to the remnant, the flight of the remnant. There's just a whole lot of stuff going on. And so we have to take these chapters side by side and understand that they are all mid-trib, that they all correlate around the same event, but there's an order to the way that they happen for a reason. And the two witnesses do not come after the abomination of desolation. And when you take chapter 11 and chapter 13 side by side, this is very easily proven. So we're going to actually start in Revelation 11, because it becomes clear that the two witnesses are killed during the course of the sounding of the sixth trumpet. After they are killed, they lay dead in the street for 3.5 days, and the Spirit of God breathes life back into them, and they stand up, and they are called up to heaven in front of everyone. Then there is an earthquake in the same hour, and 1/10 of the city falls, 1/10 of Jerusalem falls, is shaken in this earthquake, and that is the end of the sixth trumpet. We're not even quite at the midpoint of the week yet, because the midpoint of the week is characterized by the sounding of the seventh trumpet, which comes quickly after that. But that tells us that we are not quite at the midpoint. Now, the beast, we're told in Revelation 13, is given power to continue 40 and 2 months. That characterizes the last half after the sounding of the seventh trumpet through the end of the 70th week, to the time that Jesus comes back in Revelation 19. So obviously, if the two witnesses are killed, and all of the stuff that pertains to their death and resurrection and stuff like, and their ascension to heaven, being called up to heaven, happens just before the end of the sixth trumpet, and the mid-trib is at the seventh trumpet, and the beast is given power to continue 40 and 2 months, then this tells us about the sequence of events, as their death must come first, because the abomination of desolation, in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. The midst of the week is characterized by the sounding of the seventh trumpet. So, if everything that pertains to the two witnesses happens before the ending of the sounding of the sixth trumpet, and the abomination of desolation happens in the midst of the week in conjunction with the sounding of the seventh trumpet, or one of the events that occurs after the sounding of that seventh trumpet, because again, it's reactionary. So there's something else that happens in Revelation at the sounding of the seventh trumpet that this abomination of desolation is a reaction to. And then he's given power to continue 40 and 2 months. So when you follow the sequence of events, it becomes very, very clear that the two witnesses, the events pertaining to the two witnesses, are before the abomination of desolation and before the beast is given power to continue 40 and 2 months. So now I'm going to prove that to you. In Revelation 11, I'm just going to read that story to you. It says, and I'm actually going to open a second tab because I want to compare these side by side and show you that there is a defined sequence of events in Revelation 13 that points us back to where we are in Revelation 11 and tells us what has and has not yet happened. Trying to minimize my windows real quick. Okay, so in Revelation 11, let's talk about the two witnesses, and we'll start in verse 3. I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the two olive trees, the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. This next part is really, really important when we get to the sequence of events and matching the timelines and seeing where we're at in Revelation 13. And this was the part that just occurred to me, and I'm like, duh, this is, yeah. And it says, if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. that's going to come into play and be another marker of where we're at when we get to Revelation 13 in just a second. But going into the next verse about the two witnesses, these have the power to shut heaven that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. This is where we have direct correlation to Revelation 13. The beast that ascendeth. And the words are very, very important. The Greek language is like the most specific language ever. There are certain tenses and genders and all of this stuff that are very, very specific. There is no mistaking that these word choices are written the way that they are for a reason, because they are meant to give you a reference to point in time. The word ascendeth is present tense. That means that the beast is ascending out of the bottomless pit at the time that he makes war and kills the two witnesses. This is not he ascended sometime earlier and he just kind of sat around waiting. No, it's the beast that ascendeth. That is a present tense verb in the Greek. It means one of two things, that it is the same, it's a multiple time event, or it is written in the present tense. And obviously it's a one-time event. It's not a multiple repetition thing. So that's excluded. It is written in the present tense. That means he is ascending at the time that he does this. How do we have another reference point to tell us this? Revelation 13, ascendeth out of the bottomless pit is the same thing as rising up out of the sea. Revelation 13:1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. The sea, the abyss, the bottomless pit, it is all the same Greek word. It is a point in time reference that he is ascending out of the bottomless pit or rising up out of the sea. And he does this at a specific point in time to accomplish a very specific purpose, which is killing the two witnesses. Now, there is another point in time reference in Revelation 13 that tells us this also, that it is happening at this specific time. So Revelation 13:1, and this goes back to Revelation 11:7. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and overcome them and kill them. Revelation 13:1, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, ascendeth out of the bottomless pit, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, his mouth is the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him power and a seat and great authority. That goes back to references in Daniel to understand who this is. Now, this is another point in time marker. What were we told about the two witnesses and what happens to those that attempt to harm them? Verse 5 of Revelation 11, if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. Revelation 13:3, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Revelation 13:1 through 3 ties directly back to the events of Revelation 11 regarding the killing of the two witnesses, the beast ascending out of the bottomless pit, making war against them and killing them. And we are told that anyone who attempts to hurt them must in that same manner be killed. Why does the beast have a deadly head wound that appears to be healed? Specifically for that reason. Revelation 13:1 through 3 marks the events of Revelation 11 as they pertain to the death of the two witnesses. This is not, these are very point in time specific. And these are in conjunction with during the sounding of the 6th trumpet judgment. How do we know that? Well, we continue on in Revelation 11. And their dead bodies, talking about the two witnesses, shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up from heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. The same hour there was a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000. And the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So now the 6th trumpet judgment is over, and the 7th trumpet judgment comes quickly. What are we told happens? The very first thing that we are told, which is foreshadowed in Revelation 10:7, what happens with the third woe? The sounding of the 7th trumpet. In the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God shall be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. That is the audio and visual presentation of the gospel message worldwide. You have the angel flying through the midst of the heaven, declaring it, and you have the visual representation of it being displayed in the heavens, Revelation 12:1-5. That is the event that precipitates the abomination of desolation. Because what does the angel say? He says, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven, the earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters. And what does the beast do? He goes into the temple and declares himself to be above all that the angel just said worship, so that he, as God, sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. It is a reactionary event. That is why it occurs when it occurs. Yes, it's marked in the midpoint, and Daniel prophesies that it will, in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. But why does it happen when it happens? Because it's reactionary to the events of the 7th trumpet when the angel flies in the midst of the heaven, and there's a visual representation of the mystery of godliness being revealed, audio and visual. Audio in Revelation 14:6-7, and visual in Revelation 12:1-5. It is the finishing or the revelation of the mystery of God. Finishing because when a mystery is finished, it's revealed. It's no longer a mystery. So that's what that is, the mystery of godliness. Detailed point by point in 1 Timothy 3:16. Without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. Point by point, revealed, Revelation 12:1-5. When you compare those side by side, it is exact. And then obviously the audio is fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him that made heaven, the earth, the sea, and the fountains of waters, which corresponds directly to Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached as a witness to all nations, and then the end shall come. What comes directly after that in Matthew? When ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. This tells us that the abomination of desolation is reactionary. What does it follow on the heels of? The worldwide revelation of the mystery of godliness, which happens at the sounding of the 7th trumpet. So it's impossible for the abomination of desolation to happen before the two witnesses are killed, because Revelation 13:1-3 marks us back to Revelation 11 about their death, and who attacks them gets killed in the same manner. There's direct correlation between those two sets of events. They're the same thing. The beast ascending out of the bottomless pit, rising up out of the sea, same thing. And the marker of his deadly head wound is exactly what we're told about the two witnesses. If any man hurts them, in this manner shall he be killed. So those are point in time references. We know that Revelation 13:1-3 corresponds to the events that coincide with the sounding of the 6th trumpet. And after the events relating to the two witnesses are over and the earthquake occurs in the same hour, then the second woe is past. 6th trumpet, behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Well, in conjunction with that third woe, 7th trumpet, is the finishing of the mystery of godliness. After which we see the flight of the remnant according to Matthew, which means that the abomination of desolation had already taken place, which means that the abomination of desolation is a reaction to the worldwide preaching of the gospel. The angel says, fear God and give glory to him. And the Antichrist or the beast says, no, worship me. I'm greater than God. And Daniel says that's going to happen in the midst of the week. Why though? Why then? Because that's when the angel preaches the everlasting gospel worldwide. It is reactionary. So then we go to Revelation 13 and we further see this because again, Revelation 13, 1-3 corresponds to the events of the sounding of the sixth trumpet. Midpoint and abomination of desolation are going to happen after the sounding of the seventh trumpet. So then, after his deadly head wound is healed and all the world wondered after the beast, we keep reading. This is after the events relating to the two witnesses, after the end of the sixth trumpet. And they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? And then we see the abomination of desolation. There was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. To continue, which means he was already there because he got there at the sounding of the sixth trumpet regarding the two witnesses. He ascendeth out of the sea, or ascendeth out of the bottomless pit, rising up out of the sea in order to accomplish a purpose regarding the two witnesses. And then he was given power to continue in conjunction with the abomination of desolation, given him a mouth speaking great blasphemies. That's what the abomination of desolation is characterized by, is him declaring himself to be above God, above all that is called God and worship, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That is the abomination of desolation. And we see that corresponds to him being given power to continue 42 months, which is the space of the second half of the week. So hopefully that made sense, but I just wanted to clarify because sequence of events and order of operations, as it were, is very important in understanding why things happen, what is happening, and why it's happening, and trying to figure out, not even trying to figure out what, but why. The why is really, really important. And when you understand the hows and the whys, it makes the understanding of the what very much more simple, I guess. And it's kind of like once you see it, once you understand it, it's like, oh yeah. And you can't really unsee it at that point. But there's always a reason why things happen the way that they happen. And it's why taking certain verses in Revelation, you have to study the chapters in parallel, especially the midpoint, 10-15, all in parallel because they're all midpoint and they look at things from different perspectives, relate to different groups, to different people, to different events going on in the heavens, on the earth, things like that. But they're all mid-trib. And there's an order of operations, there's a sequence of events, and it must be the way that it must be for a reason. So I appreciate the fact that I got that comment, because it gave me an opportunity to show why that cannot be correct. So hopefully that all made sense. As always, if you guys have questions, comments, or feedback, let me know. But just wanted to jump on here and explain why understanding the whys is as important, if not more important, than understanding the what. Because knowing the reason behind things makes them much more easily understood. So thanks all. Have a good night. I'll see you guys later.